Looking for a new pharmacy? Howard Family Pharmacy offers fast and friendly service and convenient drive-thrus at both locations.
No one, and I mean no one, comes into our house and pushes us around.
Rest his head on a pillow made of concrete.
Mountain Arts Center.
Well, we're here. No kidding. It is that time of year again, and we decided since last year was a wash, we would come out and do a show in person and change the name of it and just make it a little bit different this year.
Start over.
Yeah, it kind of
No Byron.
Yeah, see, the first change was no. Oh, seriously. I'm Jamey Johnson. He's Jeremy Hall. We got Josh McKinney down here. Byron actually is wrapping up some family time for the summer and couldn't be here tonight, but you will see Byron this year on what we are now calling the Sound Off on Sports podcast for 2021. Why is it a podcast? Because that's a pretty popular word, isn't it?
Is it going to be the Webster Word of the Year in 2021?
It might be.
It's been around a while, though, so.
Yeah, it's been around for a while, but people like podcasting. Actually, that was something in 2020, being kind of at your house more, I got into doing was listening to podcasts. I really hadn't done that before, or a whole lot of, and enjoyed it. And we'd had suggestions previously to make a podcast version of this show, and I said, oh, what? So I had to do a little education on my own. But anyway, we decided to change the name and put out this entirely new platform of a show we've been doing now for 4 years. Yeah,
Sure.
4 years.
Sounds good.
2017.
Yeah.
So 4 years we've been doing this more of a Facebook Live show, but we've even found over the years a lot of people watch it later and not watching it live. They watch the play where we post it on and leave it there, and you watch it later. So why not record these shows for a video format and podcast format? So that's what we're doing now, and I hope you enjoy it. We're on Spotify, Google, soon to be Apple, but Apple's kind of slow about approving your podcast when it first starts. But we're on a lot of other places, Breaker and some places I've never heard of.
You can tune in at your convenience.
Yes, so you can get an audio version, or you can watch the video version here on Facebook. It will be posted regularly. Or you can find our YouTube channel and do it there. WMDJ has a YouTube. 40 years, we're there, So, hey, we're slowly climbing the mountain. And it's more or less me trying to learn and keep up with everything. But hopefully you enjoy this season. And we appreciate our sponsors again this year, the Mountain Arts Center in Prestonsburg, and also Howard Family Pharmacy, who's been with us. Wes Howard's been with us from the very beginning. So we appreciate Wes so very much. And we appreciate you watching on your time and downloading this podcast. It'll be a regular thing as we move on through the season. Of course, it's high school football. And Josh had the idea of going out to a press box. So we are at Floyd Central High School's press box.
You can't really tell. It's just a wall and door behind us, but we're here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could send this camera around, and you say, well, there's window nets up right now, kind of to help with the lighting in here. But as you can see, there's the big $5 million Jaguar head out there on the field. I don't know how much it costs, but rumor on the street or whatever. But it's a pretty field. I love it. Listen, we're blessed. We finally got everything up to par. Since the pandemic, Betsy Layne got a baseball field. If that's what it took to get a baseball field, hey.
The baseball field is nice.
It's very nice.
It is.
Nice.
Yeah, it was good to see that in the past year. So much has happened, in the last year. I mean, you had, the Browns made the playoffs.
Won a game.
Yeah, that's right. They did win a
And then
game.
got Chad Henney in the second round.
Yeah, they did. So that happened. Kentucky basketball tanked.
Reds made the playoffs.
Reds made the playoffs. They've actually gotten better this year. I know as of late it's been kind of iffy. But if not for the Pirates, they would be under 500 if it wasn't for the Pirates. I know.
We decided to scratch the Reds from the topic list.
Yeah, we're taking that off the topic list here.
Y'all can't help it.
But it's been a lot of changes in life and everything else. But hey, it's good to be back together and doing this show on a regular basis and not doing the Zoom thing. The Zoom thing kind of reminded me of you remember that show Hollywood Squares?
Yes.
Remember that? I don't know if Josh was old enough to remember it.
The newer version, not the original. I don't remember.
You didn't watch the one with Shadow Stevens on it at the bottom, and he was,
No.
Yeah.
The one I watched had Gilbert Gottfried, Whoopi Goldberg. I don't know who else.
Oh, no. You're way.
Yeah, you got like C-list celebrities. The one we watched were like B-list people.
Yeah.
And one A-lister a show. So you get like one A-list celebrity on there, and he faked the question or whatever,
No, I don't remember that one.
Can't remember. It reminds me of that, but we got a lot to get into, though.
It served its purpose. Zoom served its purpose.
It did.
It kept us all connected.
It did.
It worked.
It worked.
It worked.
It did serve its purpose.
Now let's move on past it.
I would hate to see what Zoom's financial statements are now as compared to last year.
Oh, I definitely would have. I would have sold. I'm sure if you bought early, you made a good profit, but I'm sure it's peaked.
Yeah, I would say you're right. If it's, I don't know, is it a public property?
Yeah, you could buy Zoom.
Ooh, yeah, I would
bet
have
it's
sold
one-
that.
I bet it's one of those things where the guys or ladies, whoever started it, and it went crazy. I bet they all sold out. They're probably sitting back just loaded. It's somebody else's to worry about now, and then there's still plenty of room in the world for Zoom, I'm sure, but it can't be like it was right at first because they were the only one.
Yeah,
And then Google Meet kind of got in there a little bit, but Zoom was it.
Zoom was it. If you didn't Zoom in 2020, who were you? Who do you think you were? You weren't cool if you didn't Zoom. Anyway, we got a lot to get into. Of course, we're on the eve of the high school football season. That's why we're here at Floyd Central. Floyd Central and Eastridge will be our first broadcast game this year. And then also we're going to be doing Betsy Layne in Morgan County in week 2. And then we'll see where we're at after that. I just know off the top of my head, those are the first 2 games we're doing on the year. And we're going to do the stream thing on the internet because of the Reds on the radio, unless there's a rainout or something. But also we're going to do the video for Facebook Live at football games. So we'll be doing that for the Floyd Central Eastridge game. And we will do the same for Morgan County's at Betsy Layne, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I thought so. So we're going to that's our first 2 games of the year. And there's been some changes, been some things happen, obviously since last season. But, we were talking before we did this show about what be our topics for tonight. And to be honest with you guys, what do you take from last year? Is it a throw? Listen, we had local teams that did play well. But now some of the teams that you thought traditionally are good, like your Pipe Bulls and Belfries of the world didn't have their type of successful season last year. If you persevered, you got there. Paintsville persevered and got there. They got their first state championship. Congratulations to them and getting that in their 100th year of football. And they won that last year, very timely for them. Johnson Central got to the state semifinals, just couldn't get over the hump. But here in Floyd County, it's kind of a wash. The teams, I believe, combined for 5 or 6 wins combined last year. What do coaches really take away from last year? And I'll let our dean of coaching go first here. What would you take away from a season like last year?
Well, I think the biggest thing was you get to see your kids. Those guys could have a couple of changes from the state level, and there could have been no football. So you you do have some kids who got some reps in, got to grow, and to be honest, a whole lot of time to be in the weight room. That's what I hope a lot of these teams in the mountains, and especially here in Floyd County, I think all three of those teams needed time in the weight room, and I hope they took advantage of it in the scenario that we lived through there for a while. But yeah, I think just, see who grows, see who puts in the work, and start just knowing your personnel better. I think we, as a coach, and even as the school systems, and it gives us a really good chance to get to know our students on a more personal level. And I think that's what coaches, one thing that I think they should have come away with was the ability to know their kids better. And that has to make teams closer together and stronger.
Josh, you were coaching baseball last year. How different was it having kids on a field but not having them in a classroom and seeing them in the hallways and things?
It was really weird. I think we were in person for the last couple of weeks of school year. Mm-hmm. But you had I think we might have had only a handful of baseball players who were still in person. A lot of them were virtual, mm-hmm. and it was different because you always have, as a coach, you have that connection athletically because you spend so much time in practice and games and traveling and stuff. But the relationship in the classroom is different than it is on a field or a court, and it was really weird to not kind of have that more, I guess, personable relationship that you would get in a classroom setting. It was kind of strictly all athletics because you don't see them during the day. You don't get to say, hey, how's school going? How was the test?
Building the connections.
Yeah, and it was more or less, hey, all right, let's go stretch, let's go, grab a bat kind of thing. And it was really, really different. And we did better than I think we thought, but it was just we had some kids that we weren't familiar with, because 2 years ago the 2020 season got canceled, and so we had some freshmen and sophomores that again we don't see during the day, and so they didn't get to play. So you're kind of refamiliarizing yourself with a whole grade full of players that you hadn't seen before, and it was really strange.
Definitely strange indeed. Nobody had ever had any kind of experience with this, handling it, just looking at it as a whole. I think everybody handled it the best way they could. And this year, you take what you learned from last year. That's really, I think, all you take away from last year is how you deal with those situations in 2021, 22, and going forward. And I think we've even made enough advances in terms of learning about COVID that, I don't think you're going to see as many suspensions of games unless you have major outbreaks with a team. I think if you have one or two players that maybe contracted, they'll go around and make sure that they're pulled, or anybody that maybe had been in close proximity with them pulled. But stopping a game for one case or something, I don't think that's going to happen this year.
There was a plan in place last year, obviously from school to athletics and everywhere in between. And I think a lot of things were done last year to kind of, I don't want to say knee-jerk because it was precautionary. It was to kind of help things run as smoothly as possible. But
I think on the side of caution.
Yeah, I think this year it's more or less okay. We have a plan just like last year, but we know how to handle situations better instead of just okay. Well, let's just cancel it. Let's just one person got it. The whole team's out. And I think it's handling things better to make sure that the experience across the board is more consistent from team to team, so that you don't have a Floyd Central play 6 games and somebody else play 12. I think there's a plan just like last year, but I think the plan is a little bit more detailed and a little bit more prepared to handle certain things.
Yeah, Jeremy, you always told me that football players have to have consistency from week to week. You have to have that regiment and schedule, almost like a military regiment, so to speak. When you're getting interrupted by those things, the stoppages hurt football more than any other sport. You just can't reschedule a football game. It's not the same way as the other sports are. So it's critical to play your games on a regular basis and also to have that regimen in place to be able to execute that plan. And I think that's the goal this year for every team. Would it not be?
Yes, definitely. And I can speak for Betsy Layne. Last year, we got hit early 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
With cancellations and 2-week breaks because of we had somebody close to our team that had COVID, and looking as a football coach, looking at our schedule as we came back, there were some games there that we probably should have won, but our guys were just so out of tune. You play a team that's got 3 games under their belt, and you've had one, and then out 2 weeks, and then come back. It was just impossible. I was going to say that earlier. The X's and O's, I don't know if any coach, besides, the big powerhouse teams that are around us that went further down the road, and I don't know if anybody got any real X's and O's stuff out of last year. But I have noticed already this year, a lot of those things that they asked us to do during COVID last year, and I can speak for Betsy Layne, and I'm pretty sure I've heard some other schools around us have already put those things in place and didn't have to be asked. I mean, they're already trying to look ahead. Okay, if this gets bad again, how are we going to save our football season? How are we going to keep our kids protected and not have to do a 2-week suspension or a 2-game suspension while we're out on COVID or those type of things? So I think last year was the learning process and the learning curve was on how to deal and play football with COVID around.
So I'm going to go off script here for a minute. Move this screen, Josh. Just try to move that out for a bit. I'm going to turn the camera while we're talking so that you can see what's happening out here on this field. They're actually out here they've been in the weight room working on some things. So I want to zoom in just on what's going on in the field while we're sitting here yakking. So, but at the podcast, it doesn't matter. You're just hearing us yab. But if you're watching the video of this, the video podcast version, you can watch the practice out here. And you get a feel for what's going on. This is just here at Floyd Central. About 35 kids out right now for football. I'm sure that number will probably fluctuate, maybe go up, hopefully, here sooner than later. I know they got some kids that aren't practicing or preparing right now. But in terms of the play on the field, what do coaches take away from last season when you played a 2-4 schedule, or you were 2-4 last year, you went 3-5 or even less? What do you take from that?
See, that's where I think you just have to. I hope they learn how to play with COVID being in our world, because really and truly, depending on what games you missed, it really affected your entire season. I hate to say this, but we've talked over the years about coaches. They try to get some wins in, before the season starts. You're looking at your schedule and building your schedule. Mm-hmm. You try to get a couple wins that you really think you got the best odds at. And
yeah.
So, if you lose one or two of those games because of COVID, then your schedule looks a whole lot different, and the numbers are so much different. And that really is, it's kind of demoralizing to coaches and players and parents and everybody involved when, you're not getting those wins that you really thought you were.
And I think, specifically to Floyd Central, in the middle of a season, you don't know that you're going to go 2-4 and not make the playoffs. You're still whatever game is in front of you that you're able to play, you're still trying to win that game. You're still trying to win your district games. You're trying to get to the postseason. In the case of Floyd Central, you don't know that it may be kind of a wasted year. So you're still playing your Brant Potters, your Caleb Hagers every second you can.
Last year, yeah.
Right, trying to win a game. And so it ends up being you go 2-4. A lot of it doesn't really matter. And so the guys that would get work behind them, you're almost kind of taking a step back because you lose those guys now. And the development that they would have gotten otherwise, you're not so much focused on the down the road development because you're still in the moment trying to win for now. And then it becomes, let's start all over.
It's a start over point.
Yeah.
It's almost like our podcast. It's a start over thing. Because you look at their schedule, they won their first 2 games Floyd Central did last year. They beat Hazard, beat Prestonsburg, and then they had a couple more games on the schedule there. They played 3 district games real quick. And then it just went off the rails. They played one more game after that, but by then it was too late.
And I don't know I'm thinking they might. I don't know that they had any cancellations because of anything in Floyd Central. I think it was all the opponents that had to cancel. But it's still, like Jamey said, with football you can't just have a game canceled on Friday and let's reschedule for Tuesday. like you can for basketball or baseball or volleyball. It's a Friday thing, and if you get one canceled, well, there's already one scheduled for the next Friday.
And some tried to do a reschedule and play somebody else on a Saturday, or looking for somebody on Friday night. There were a lot of schools last year that were scheduling games the day of.
Yeah,
that happened in football last
just
year.
The Blade passed the thing where you were allowed to do that because football you have contracts and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, we had I know some teams around here that would get notified on Thursday. Your Friday team is out.
Yeah.
And they would scramble trying to find somebody else who had a team that had dropped later to play on that Friday.
So. Oh, I'm sure there were teams that traveled hours across the state just to play a game.
Oh, yeah, and that happened. And then you had some counties that said, hey, we're not coming to your county as red or whatever. And then I think now we're not paying attention to that at this point. If we were paying attention to incident rates, we wouldn't be preparing for Friday night because there's nobody in the state that can play at this point. But I think that's because we've learned more about this since last year.
I think kind of what Jeremy said a second ago. Last year, a lot of the procedures and things were kind of implemented as a reaction. This year, it's okay. We know. Let's kind of prepare for it before it ever happens.
Yeah.
They kind of know now
it's
how
all
to go.
fluid.
Yeah, it's a little bit more. It's no more. Wait and see and then react. It's okay. Let's go ahead and take care of it now.
Yeah, definitely so. I just wonder what's going to happen. You got some changes with each school, obviously. Betsy Layne has a new football coach. We'll talk about that in the second half of our show. But also, Floyd Central, you've lost key players from last year. And like you just said, who's going to fill those shoes because, hey, they weren't getting reps as much last year. So you're moving players to skill positions and trying to fill those other positions with inexperience. That's going to be tough. And Prestonsburg, I'm not for sure what's going to happen there. They've not showed a lot of improvement in the last 3 years. 7 wins in 3 seasons. And I know you can't, the thing I think you have to really pay attention to with COVID and the season last year is you can't say, well, you only won 2 games or 3 games. Listen, it was a miracle you played 3 or 4 games. So you can't, that's the pass you get overall when it comes to that. But this year, there's going to be some expectations for some programs, including Prestonsburg and up here, I believe.
And we'll get into each team specifically, but I think in Prestonsburg and Floyd Central's case, because Betsy Layne, I think, returns a lot of guys who, I think they can do a lot of things this year. But in Floyd Central's case, you're without Hager. In Prestonsburg's case, you're without Sloan.
Yeah.
I know those two are just one player for each team, but those 2 players did a lot for their respective teams the last 3 or 4 years.
That they did,
and that's going to be, whether it was a receiver, split out, quarterback, whatever role they were in, they did a lot on the field for those 2 teams. And it's, like we said, how do you fill those shoes with players who didn't get the reps they would have got otherwise?
Yeah.
Well, I got to say this is I think just looking at it from some outside eyes, I think Prestonsburg and Floyd Central, if you ask people, they may have not had the seasons they wanted, and we know it was in COVID and all that. But I do think that they're on if they're on a teeter-totter, the possibility for them to tip down is there, depending on several factors. I think Betsy Layne, I think we got a bunch of kids returning. The possibility to tip up is there this year for sure. So, and that's what happens every year with football. But I think there's a little more hot under the collar if 2 of these teams, being Floyd Central and Prestonsburg, if they don't come out and show some people that they're there to play some football.
You don't have that, well, we're dealing with a pandemic excuse. I'm not saying anybody used it, but I'm just saying you glossed over it and you gave it a pass. And that's with every sport last year. Even on the professional level, I think they were looking over things in terms of college and professional athletes from last season too. Now you don't. It's back to playing sports and it's back to looking for results, even on this level. And there's some expectations to be had and some improvement that needs to be made. And I think it's fair to say expectations need to be met at some point. You're looking at no school in this county has won a playoff game since 2017. That was Floyd Central and Prestonsburg. Both won their playoff games. Prestonsburg beat Middlesboro, and Floyd Central beat Henry County. And they've not won. Some of them haven't been back. So I believe last year only Betsy Layne made the playoffs last season due to the COVID mess. So, and it wasn't a pretty thing. And they only got in because they beat Fairview. They won one district game that got them in. So definitely some expectations, but you have the facilities. I think each school has the athletes and the coaching in place. But with the breakup of everything that happened last year, hopefully this year, more of a routine, more of a normalcy, and better results.
Yeah, I think that's the goal for everything right now is get back to normal. And we've talked about that even in schools. Try to get these kids the normal across the board has changed so much and been gone for so long. All sports need to get back to where they were and then build from there, I believe. And whoever can get back to normal quicker probably has an advantage over other schools.
We're watching Floyd Central here. Does it look pretty normal to you, Jeremy?
Well, I'll be on. You ask it, I'll say it. And this was something that I worried about last year. As you watch teams go through the year, their numbers dwindled. You've seen teams with 40 and 50 players and end up with 30. And that really worried me about kids who just walk away from the sport. It just wasn't worth their while last year to really spend all that effort of trying to just make it normal. So they just walked away. And whether or not those numbers come back, I think is something that a lot of teams have to worry about.
Hey, I know in the case of Floyd Central, I've seen new faces from upperclassmen that are here or those who have reclassified. That's a whole nother topic. But also, I see a lot of fresh faces in terms of freshmen that are out there right now. So there's some youth on this particular team, just from us watching up here in the press box. But the whole reclassification thing for student athletes is going to be, we're not really going to know until the season starts and what impact it makes on each individual sport.
Yeah. And I know a couple, specifically on the football team, but there's also basketball, baseball. There's players that have done it everywhere, and I know you mentioned kind of the freshmen. The eighth graders were kind of able to stay back and kind of at different places. What kind of impact would that have made? Because as a coach, you're kind of expecting, well, I got this really nice eighth grade group coming up as freshmen. Well, then half of them decide to stay back and repeat eighth grade again because of the new, law that was passed. And that's kind of another hurdle that, as a coach, you're trying to have to navigate through and, all this other stuff because, hey, this kid had a cannon for an arm. That's my quarterback for the next 4 years. Well, nope, he's staying back in middle school, So it's, how there's all these wrinkles that, yes, you knew they were coming, but you don't really know how to attack them until you're out there on the field. You see what you got. And you kind of know who you're working with.
That's our first half of the show. Of course, our show is brought your way by Howard Family Pharmacy and the Mountain Arts Center. We're going to take a break and come back and talk about each individual team and their schedules and maybe make some guesses on how it could all pan out this year. When we come right back, you're listening to and watching the Sound Off on Sports podcast from WMDJ.
Looking for a new pharmacy? Howard Family Pharmacy offers fast and friendly service and convenient drive-thrus at both locations.
Welcome back to the second half of the Sound Off on Sports podcast. I'm trying to get used to the new name, because it's not a Facebook Live show anymore. So we're trying to get used to the new name. But Sound Off on Sports podcast brought to you by the Mountain Arts Center and Howard Family Pharmacy. Jamey Johnson, Jeremy Hall, Josh McKinney. We are on site at Floyd Central. Does this field have a name?
Floyd Central High School football field.
There you go. Let's get creative. No, I don't mean to be a smart aleck. I get people say I don't like that Jamey Johnson. He's a smart aleck.
I say it all the time.
But it needs a name, though. It needs a name.
No, I agree. I think you all are kind of in the same thought process as me. I think if you, I don't name things just for the sake of naming them. I mean, there may not be somebody worthy of having this field named after him, but I think if you have somebody, then I think it's.
You're getting all formal. See, I was thinking like slang.
Oh no, I'm thinking of like putting a name on it.
Oh, I'm thinking like mountain den. Mountain jungle, the mountain jungle or something. I don't know.
You could do that, I guess, but
I would.
We can call it that.
Why can't we do that, John? No.
We call it. We got Taj Mahal down the hill.
Well, Taj Mahal is a great name. I love that. Jeremy's shaking his head. I love that. I thought that was fantastic.
It's creative and original. I'll say that.
I love it. And the fact that it was used in a formal school setting by an opponent is fabulous. And I encourage more of that. I think it's great. I mean, I really think it's great. I'm not being smart aleck about that. All right. Hey, a second half of the show here tonight, we wanted to talk about each individual team here in Floyd County, and we are looking for good things ahead. I tell you one thing that's good, just looking out here, is you have the high school team out here practicing, but also, what do you have on the sideline, Jeremy?
Those are probably B-teamers. I don't know if it's A-team. Might be some A-team. It's middle school football.
That's middle school football.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I like seeing. I like seeing these middle school players up here with the high school players right now, where we're still a little early out on the season, and you're seeing some of their coaches up here talking with them. This is where it starts, is getting this. And I know that South Floyd is doing like a 5th grade team this year, and then they're doing the middle school together between Dace and South Floyd Middle, and then of course the high school. But this is where it starts.
It seems, generally speaking, I know there's exceptions, but the last few years, there's just seemed to be some sort of disconnect between the Floyd County high schools and the middle school. Whatever it is, it just seems like it doesn't translate from one as they advance. If that makes sense.
You want that handoff. It's like over at Belfry, you're learning stuff that you're going to be applying.
Example.
Well, listen. What's your aspiration here? Let's be serious. What's your aspiration?
Well, let's shoot for like Pike Central first, before we get to Belfry.
I don't want to knock Pike Central. I'm just saying, if you want to be like the Joneses, keep your yard looking like the Joneses. I mean,
there is no way to get at a level of Belfry or Hazard or.
That's a 4-decade process.
Well, I said 20 years.
Without.
Did I not say that on a show one time?
I think you did.
I said it would take 20 years to be on that level for them to go down a little
bit.
bit.
It just seems like when the middle schoolers get to high school, and I know there's exceptions, it just seems like it's more of a restart than a pick up and let's go.
But that's what you want. You want that pick up and let's go.
Right. You don't want to pick up and start over. And
if you got to teach a high school boy how to play football when he's a freshman or sophomore, you'll never go.
You're not going far.
You're never going to win state championships.
Yeah, you're not going far. I mean, when you had your runs, it was because you had experience. You took your lumps. You had some super talent, but.
Well, even going back and looking at those teams that we did have that we made some good little runs with, those groups of juniors and seniors usually came from, the middle school level and younger together. It was like whole herd, mentality.
Right.
We were getting like 10, 12, 14 kids that had played together since 3rd grade. And then by the time they got to seniors and the group behind them was the same way. Yeah, I mean, I'll put it this way. We had the talent that put us on close to being an equal playing field as teams around us.
Yeah, and the teams you were chasing to win titles and playoff games, and that's what you wanted.
We beat some Paintsvilles there a couple of years. We was with a touch ball away from beating Pikeville one year, an injury or two at Pikeville the next year.
Raining out at Pikeville one year, a couple fumbles.
And it was just little things like that. Now that's why we play the game. That's the cool stuff about the game is you never know those type scenarios.
But you want a chance.
But
you want to be in the game.
As a coach, you want to go out there with a team that's on the talent level to be there. Because I love those nights a whole lot better than the ones that I went in and Jamey's asking me 100 questions for the game, and I won't be like, dude, really? You know.
I was like, dude, I'm trying to make it fair.
We're going to play
You know?
this game here, and I hope all my boys that I love get on the bus tonight safe and not too battered, and we can go play Phelps or somebody next week.
I wasn't that hard on you about questions, was I?
No, you were harder on the years that we were there.
I was fair.
So Jamey did his job.
He did.
I was fair.
He did, and he is very good at leading you to the only way to answer is the way he wants you to.
Yeah, you know.
Because I try to.
You don't ask
I try to
questions.
think before I say a lot of things in this world, but he'd be just like, there's no answer. You just got to say it. And you say it, and he smiles at you behind his
'cause I
little
got you.
microphone,
Uh-huh.
He sticks it out there, and he's like smiling ear to ear.
Well, there's only one way to ask a question, and ask the questions you already know the answer to.
Exactly. And I always heard never ask a question that you don't already know the answer to.
There you go.
So-
There you go. Well, I'm going to ask some questions to you guys, but you already know the questions. We're going to talk about each team here in the county right now, and we'll start with Betsy Layne. And there has to be some excitement because not a lot's been going on. You got some returning players, but also you got a new head coach and a familiar name to fans of athletics in Floyd County, Jared Gerald, who started at Prestonsburg as a quarterback and was also a good basketball player too. And he's going to have his first head coaching gig on the high school level. What's happening on the Hill right now?
There's a lot of excitement on the Hill right now. Ready for the opening night against Prestonsburg.
There you go.
So, there couldn't be a better scenario out there.
First game he's going to coach is against his alma mater. He's
Yeah.
going to want that game no matter what.
He wants it, and I think his boys want it. Everybody on the Hill wants it, and they're working real hard to get it too.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with them. They have some good leadership at the quarterback position again this year, which has been their strong suit. It's just having guys to throw to in a more consistent manner, and also to have a better run game, because when you don't have that run game, defenses just pin their ears back and go right after the quarterback. And hopefully those things change. But now, Jared's got that quarterback mentality. I really expect some big numbers this year from that position at Betsy Layne.
And Coach Gerald's offense a lot closer to what I liked when I was coaching. The opportunity is there for Mims to really air it out, but also to get some yards on the ground. And a lot of the games last year, he was the biggest athlete out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I sometimes wondered, I'd see him in the hall on Monday. I was like, man, you should have tucked that one and just went. And he's been in the weight room, so I'm expecting big things from him and a lot of the other guys that's back.
Chase Mims, who we're referring to here, quarterback for Betsy Layne, and I think he's a senior this year. This is his year to shine. And I think with Gerald as his coach, you're going to see more of him running the football.
Yeah, I'll say it. A lot of those years that I had good quarterbacks, you can tell by looking at me, I am not a quarterback. I tried to educate myself on what a quarterback needed to do, but unless you've been under center or you've been out there taking those snaps, it's hard to see what a quarterback sees. And I think this year will help him a lot. Having Gerald there in his ear at practice, working on some of those finer touches that he didn't have before.
They play a tough schedule just in terms of their district. So they're doing what you had said earlier. You want to schedule some games you think you can get. Looking at their schedule, Prestonsburg at home, that's an electric start to the season there. Morgan County at home, and then they're on the road at East Ridge, and then home dates with Jenkins, who's not playing a district schedule this year, but they are playing a varsity schedule, and Knott County Central, and then a trip to Phelps, and that's your first 2 months before you get into Raceland and Painesville back-to-back. And then you have your Fairview game, and then you have Floyd Central to end the year in late October. Jeremy, I ask you this. Expectations there, I see 5, potentially 6 wins for this team.
Yeah, we've talked about it over the years a lot. I think it's a pretty good schedule. I think if they work hard, they can get that 5 and put themselves in a position to maybe squeak out a 6 or a 7, and that's just that's where you want to go. That's the kind of schedule you want. If you're a smaller school, you know, I don't think you can ask for much more. I don't necessarily like the Floyd Central game at the end.
Yeah.
Just because, but we don't. That's a whole other topic we won't want to get into. But I like the schedule.
Just because it's a 3A team and a 1A team?
Yeah.
But it's a 3A team with 35 players. It's not like they have 60 out here.
Yeah, the pool to shop from is bigger. So, you know, and it just should work out. A 3A team, the only year I ever played 3A teams was when I had those teams that I knew that could compete with them.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, it's an in-county school, and why not? But the rest of that schedule, I love.
Well, I think I see a solid 5 wins. I see the potential for 6, maybe 7 on there for them. I think 5-5 is probably a really realistic goal for Betsy Layne. And this is a program that hasn't had a 500 season in a very long time. So to get to 500, and yeah, they're playing a confident schedule, but that's okay because that's kind of where they are right now. They're starting over from the bottom of a rookie football coach, but he's younger. He's going to bring a lot of excitement, and that's going to raise those expectations and prepare themselves for next year. They can't really play this kind of schedule. It can be a little tougher, and then gradually work your way up to where you're competing. And I can see that happening. I don't see Jerry going anywhere. He's going to go there and buy in and be there for a long time.
Yeah, and, you know, 10 years down the road, very few guys except maybe Josh can remember what the other teams were like when, if Betsy Layne goes 5-5 in the, 21-22 school year.
Hey, listen, I was there when they had to beat Phelps to get in a playoff game for the first time in their history. I was there. I did the game, and they won, but it wasn't pretty. It was a tough win for them, but it was like jubilation. And then you know what happened? 2 years later, they were playing Somerset. They had them down to the wire.
Hosted Somerset.
And that's what wins do. I mean, I hate these little guys running around here right now and warming up down there.
Mm-hmm.
They see wins. They don't see who. They see wins.
They see wins. They don't know who, and they don't know about the history. They just see wins and what's happening right now.
They hear the hype. They see the Facebook, and they see the Instagram pictures of these boys winning, and that's what builds. Winning games builds programs.
Yeah, definitely. Floyd Central looking to build off, had a good start last year, but then, as we told you, did not win a district game. Had a lot of cancellations, only played 1 game in the month of October, I think, or 1 or 2 at the most. Again, kind of a throwaway season in terms of the record. But and we've talked about what you take away from the type of year. We talked about it in the first half of the show. But, Josh, here's their schedule. You have East Ridge away, Perry Central away, Shelby Valley at home, and then Leslie County. I'm telling you, 2-2 out of that first 4 is an achievement for me. 2-2. I think they get East Ridge. Perry's going to be a tough game over there. Shelby Valley has really elevated their football program in the last several years. And Leslie County's always tough at Leslie. Ask Jeremy about that. It's tough to get to. It's tough to get to the press box. But it's not a pleasant thing. But 2-2 is an achievement if they get through that. It's a little tough. That's a lot of questions with this team.
Perry Central's the only team in the first 4 that's in a class above. But Valley's a very good 2A team. I think a lot of people thought they may drop off when Eric Ratliff left a couple of years ago, but Hampton's done a really good job taking over there. And Leslie, Leslie is. It doesn't matter what they have. It seems like with Melton, they're always in the mix in their district. With Prestonsburg and that group, and they got Leslie on the road. Valley's at home, so maybe that's a couple.
Maybe
points.
That helps, but they run the football a lot, and if you ain't stopping it, it's gonna be a long night.
And 2-2, I think if you're 2-2, I think you're happy through the first 4. Floyd Central, I think this may be one of the more athletic groups I think they've had. Now, I don't know, they may not have a lot of size, they may not have a lot of bulk, a lot of strength, but I do think they've got some guys who can get to the football, who can maybe shore up the edges a little bit more than they have in the past. losing Caleb Hager and Brant Potter and Trenton Hatfield, Ethan Sparkman, that group is going to be a huge hole to fill in the trenches, at the quarterback position, tight end position. But you've got some speed, you've got some athleticism. It's just being athletic's one thing, being a football player is another thing. And it's, can the athletes make the football plays that you need them to make? Let's face it, Floyd Central's not been able to guard edges in the last 4 years. They've not been able to cover a speedster downfield, at the wide receiver position. They just seem to be a step slow. But I do think athletically, they're more capable of doing that stuff this year than before. It's just, can you get those guys up to speed that lost out on some reps the last year?
Yeah, that's where I think last season hurts a program like this, specifically here. Betsy Layne, they have a lot of returning players. They have a softer schedule. They have a fresh set of eyes and a renewed atmosphere with a new head coach. I think they trend to have a pretty good year. Here, you're coming off a lot of negatives, and it's going to be tough to make those adjustments. This is going to be a tough coaching year for Coach Hager.
Well, this is an offense, specifically an offense that's relied on the arm and legs of Caleb Hager for 3 years. Brant Potter filled in at quarterback 2 years ago. Last year, he was their main receiver. You lose Trent Hatfield, who moved from offensive line to running back last year. He's gone now. Thomas Moore, Ethan Sparkman, who might have been the biggest lineman this side of Lexington. He's not here. But you've got your Sheston Johnsons, your Blake Adams, your Max Martins. You've got some guys who can make plays, but can you fill them into the spots that you need to put them into with those guys that are no longer here? That's the big question.
You're on camera. What are you giving that look? Tell me, Jeremy. That's a lot of ifs in that. A lot of ifs. Yeah. That's what a guy would tell you. It's a lot of ifs.
What Josh did a very good job of explaining right there basically boils down to where's your playmaker, and going into a season and you don't know who your playmaker is going to be is very, very scary as a coach. Looking out there and knowing some of these kids, I don't know. There's playmakers, but knowing which one is the one that picks it up and says, all right, get on my back, give me the ball.
They don't have a Hager.
They don't
Hager
have
could
one.
do that.
They don't have one.
They don't have that Dylan Cottle, that Caleb Hager, that, if you need 5 yards, they're going to break their back getting you 5 yards.
Yeah.
And as a coach, you always like to have that one that you can see it in his eyes when you're standing there in the huddle and you need 7 yards to be able to stay in the game, and you can look around your huddle and you look at that one kid and his eyes is staring at you, and you can just tell he wants it and he's going to get it for you. When you don't see any of those eyes, it's scary.
I'm going to have a lot of reliance, I think, on the ground game. Bryce Stacker got a lot of touches last year. He's a big part of this at fullback. Also, I'm flipping my notes over here. You got to find somebody to run that football along with Sheston Johnson. He's going to be the other guy. I think racks up a lot of carries this year for Floyd Central. But questions at the QB spot with Max Martin, if he's going to be the starting quarterback. We don't know.
He's been the backup JV quarterback last couple of years,
right? But
you would assume that continues, and but
he may be better at a different position,
right?
Depending on needing a playmaker outside of your quarterback. So it wouldn't surprise me if you see some changes at that position throughout the year. And there's a lot of names on here that I look and I say, I'm going to have to, he sees it, he knows it. We're going to wait and fill in the hose and see who it's going to be. Because it's a young team. Looking at their schedule, we mentioned the first 4, then they play Prestonsburg on September 17th, and then you get into the district schedule. Pike Central is here this year, Belfry is here this year, and then on the road at Magoffin County and Lawrence County back-to-back, and then Betsy Layne here at home to close it out. I'm looking at a 3-7, 4-6 season for Floyd Central at this point. If you get above 4-6, I think you've really done well to get to 5-5 and get a district win. That includes getting a district win, and that's going to be probably getting Pike Central or Magoffin County. But the problem is, Magoffin kept their talented guys from last year, and they beat you here last year. Pike Central has changed coaches, but they stayed in-house with a long-time assistant. They're not really going to miss a beat, and they bring back everybody from last year, too. It's going to be a tough road for Floyd Central football.
And football, it's kind of it's different because your district games. I think there's more emphasis put on those than the other ones. If you go 4-6 and your 4 wins are district wins, I think you're okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you want to win all of them, obviously, and I think for Floyd Central, when it comes to the district, Belfry's Belfry. Lawrence County, they've been kind of on the tail of Belfry for a little while. I think they've kind of surpassed Pike Central the last 6-7 years in the district. And I think if you're Floyd Central, you had Sheldon Clark, you were ahead of them. Then the districts got realigned. Now you got McGoffin. I think the game you want to circle is Pike Central. You've played Pike Central really close for 4 years, and you're 0-4.
Yeah,
and
you got to get them.
I think if you can, you may win 3 or 4 games, but if you can get that Pike Central game, I think just kind of psychologically within a district that is really tough for a program still trying to find itself, I think that's going to go a long way with kind of turning, maybe starting to kind of turn a little bit of a corner, in the next couple of years. But if you can finally get over that hump and kind of scratch out a win against them.
Yeah, I know I'm being negative Nanny here saying 3 and he said 3-7. Well, I mean, it could happen. 3-7 could happen. 4-6 is more than likely. If you asked me to pin down a number, I would tell you 4-6. But listen, if you're 3-2 going into that Pike Central game on the September 24th Friday night right here at home, you get that game, you're winning 6 games. If you get that, you're going to win at least 6.
Yeah, you 3-2 is very plausible through your first 5 heading into district play. And I think if you're 3-2, first district game at home, you expect a big crowd. And if you can somehow get that in 4-2, yeah, I know you've got Belfry waiting the next week, but 4-2 going into 3 district games looks a lot better than 3-3.
This schedule every year seems like it is hinged on those 2 back-to-back games, Prestonsburg and Pike Central, every stinking year.
For different reasons. The Prestonsburg, it's that whole Prestonsburg.
That's over with. That don't mean anything now.
You still want
Right
to
or
do it.
wrong.
No, you're right.
It don't mean
It doesn't
anything.
mean anything. It's just that's probably one of your ones. If you're a coach, you put in your mind as a win.
Yeah, that's
But
a win.
That's easy for us to say. We're not 15 years
I
old on
get
a
it,
football
but
field.
I mean, but 4 years ago that wasn't a win.
Right.
Then it was 3 years ago, and you're throwing a
But
parking lot
it's
party.
still an emotional night.
It is, but it's more tempered. It's not the
Right.
wow, we beat Prestonsburg. Holy
it's-
jeez!
It's still
it ain't
it's
that
still a
anymore.
tough turnaround, I think, for a high school kid to go from playing a team that
Yeah.
you hate, regardless of where they are, whether they're really good, really bad. You hate Prestonsburg, and to turn around and then focus on a
He said
district
that, by the way.
in a football play.
Okay.
And to turn around and then focus on it's Pike Central.
You got to they have to get up more for the Pike Central game.
Yeah, we know that.
The whole game, in my opinion. If they get that game, then I'm giving them a shot at McGoffin County because they got it a couple years ago down there on a last-second play.
We've also had Floyd Central players say, "I'd rather go 1-9 and beat Prestonsburg."
Yeah, we have, but thank God they're not in the program anymore. Or around it.
And I think the Prestonsburg game has cost Floyd Central
Yep.
2 Pike County wins. One year
Yeah.
they thought they were going to beat Prestonsburg. Prestonsburg lays it on them, and they quit the
Right
next
up here.
week
Yep.
at Pike Central. And then the next year, I think it was the win over Prestonsburg.
First time since 80
And then it was
something.
like,
Yep.
woo, God, our season's over. And then they get whooped by Pike Central, and they should have won it. I mean,
Yeah.
I think both of those years they should have been either right there or should have won. And it was just like, hey,
Yeah.
we got whipped by Prestonsburg, so, it's over. And then one year we whipped, and then, it's over again.
I do think, Allen Central, South Floyd, it was that whole, Creeker versus city mentality. I don't think that's there as much anymore because it's Floyd Central now. So I do think, to your point, it's not as,
That game, Floyd Central, or South Floyd Allen Central game, one thing that helped that game was the fact that it was played later in the year, and it was a district game. So it did mean
I'm talking
something.
about against Prestonsburg.
But-
It's not, the groups coming up, the middle schoolers, the freshmen, even the sophomores, I don't think they look at Prestonsburg the same way as Allen Central South Floyd players
Okay,
did.
I agree with
But
that.
it's
I agree
still
with that.
a game that, it's still Prestonsburg. It's still the P on the helmet.
Yeah.
And it may not be as intense, it may not be as emotionally draining, but you don't want to lose to Prestonsburg. And that's every sport.
And now you don't want to lose to them now is what it is.
Right.
And it's not, I don't think it's as much the city versus county thing as much as it was 3 or 4 years ago.
And there could be just as much pressure on not losing as is finally beat them.
Who's got more pressure on them, okay? This season, who has more pressure? Floyd Central to perform or Prestonsburg to perform as we transition to Prestonsburg here?
Prestonsburg.
Jeremy?
I think Prestonsburg. I think the outlook and expectations down there is going to have to come through, and the Pipers going to have to be paid at some point, and some wins are going to be put up, or it becomes a really hot seat to sit in.
There's been some transfers for Prestonsburg coming to Prestonsburg. So that shows there is interest in going there and interest in playing for Brandon Brewer. Again, you take away last year, it's a total wash. But you look at the schedule, they have Betsy Layne away. They're going to count that as a win, at least if you're in Prestonsburg's eyes. They want to see that as a win. You have Magoffin County at home. You have Phelps. You have Powell County. You're going to Phelps, and then you're playing Powell County at home, Floyd Central up here, and then you get into your district schedule, and they have one of the larger districts of East Ridge, who almost beat them last year over there, Shelby Valley, West Carter, Bath County, and Martin County. I'm in the same boat I am up here. I see 4 and 6 or 5 and 5 for Prestonsburg.
Yeah, I think the potential's there. If everything is clicking the way those guys down there want it, 5 and 5 with a shot of maybe squeaking out another couple is huge.
First 4 games: Betsy Layne, Magoffin, Phelps, and Powell County. Your expectation there is no worse than 3 and 1.
Yeah. I think
And
as a
that's
coach,
going
you're
into
thinking-
Floyd Central. You
you're
want to be
thinking-
3 and 1.
Yeah, you're thinking 3 and 1 right there.
Yeah, you're thinking 3 and 1. If you get Floyd Central, you're 4 and 1. You have East Ridge, you're 5 and 1, and then you're going to Shelby Valley. There is a method to the madness of scheduling in terms of confidence. If you're 5 and big difference being 5 and 1 going to Shelby Valley than being 2 and 3. If you're 5 and 1, you give yourself a shot at that. You have West Carter at home, but West Carter, man, they really have gotten tough. That's not an automatic win, even though they're coming to your place this year. And then you have Bath County away and Martin County away, and Martin County is a better team this year. And they were chopping at the bit to get a bye to Prestonsburg last year, and it didn't happen. So I think that's a loss for them. They need a district win. They'll probably get that over Bath County. The East Ridge game is pretty important to them on the schedule. They have to keep winning against them. That's a big game for them.
I think the parallel between Prestonsburg and Floyd Central's schedule is almost identical.
Yeah, really.
I'm sure Prestonsburg is looking at Floyd Central's looking at the schedule. 4 and 2, maybe if all things go right, 5 and 1 going into district play. Prestonsburg's probably the same way.
Same way.
Hey, East Ridge. If we can go to East Ridge, play well, win convincingly, get our confidence up into a big Shelby Valley game. I'm sure that's their thought process too. But they got some holes to fill. Carter Akers is a nice guy to have back who can carry a big load offensively. He's gonna make whoever the quarterback's gonna be replacing Braden Sloan. He's gonna make that job a lot easier. It's still gonna be extremely important to find who that is, but Carter back there is gonna make that job a little bit easier, having to turn and give him the football.
I think John Little is a big name you're going to hear from this year, too, for Prestonsburg. You'll hear him caught out on offense, especially running the football. But again, I think they're kind of in the same boat as Floyd Central. They got to find a playmaker. They got to find that go-to guy. And it might be midway through the year before they find that. But they're in the same quandary schedule-wise. Yeah. You come off this game, if they beat Floyd Central, and they could, that's a push game for me, to be quite honest with you. To me, that's a push game this year. But you're coming off
probably slight edge Floyd Central.
Maybe, but
it's one of those home team gets like a 2-point favor,
maybe.
Well, it gets one of them scenarios where I think Jamey just said there's some madness, or there's some if Prestonsburg's coming in here at a 3 and 1, I think the hot seat then turns to Floyd Central.
Yeah.
they're probably in the hot seat too. Oh, we got to win this game, or we're in the hot seat at that point.
The winner of that game, well, either way, the next week for both teams, when they start district play versus Pike Central and East Ridge respectively, is going to be very, very tough. But both of these programs have to understand the importance of jumping out 1-0 in that district play. If not, you're done when Halloween comes. Your season's done. You're not playing in November. Bar none. I'll throw that out there. I don't think either one of these teams reaches the postseason, Floyd Central or Prestonsburg, if they don't win the game after they play each other. And that's on podcast tape, so there we go, or whatever. Not Memorex anymore, but that's why we're going to watch them play. That's why we're going to watch this season and find out what happens. And of course, this is all barring no injuries and no COVID stops.
This is if everything goes the way you expect it to go.
Ifs. Yeah. I don't want to have ifs. It was tough last year jumping back and doing a football game after being off for 2 or 3 weeks. Just from my perspective, I can't imagine how tough it was trying to get players motivated to practice for weeks and weeks and weeks, and you ain't playing a game. It was just almost a loss. It was great you had to do it. I'm glad they went through with it. Congrats to those who had success last year. I don't think it diminishes your success. Like if you're Paintsville and you won a state title, you did it during COVID.
There's no asterisk beside that title.
No, I think it means even more that you did it because of all the hurdles you had to jump through. So, but for these schools that we've been talking about primarily, you put last year behind you. Look forward to what's going to happen here this week and moving on as we get started with week 0 of football.
I like it because all 3 schools in the county, there's excitement, but there's kind of different types of excitement.
Yeah.
Betsy Layne, it's they expect a big year over there, especially with Jared. I love Jared Gerald. Played a couple years at Pike. Well, did pretty well at UPike as a wide receiver. You've got Prestonsburg. The proudest tradition in the county going. The faces are different, but it's still Prestonsburg football. And then you got Floyd Central, who they set the bar really high that first year.
Yeah.
And then they see the athletes they have, and they're kind of excited. This may be one of our more athletic teams. Let's see what we can do. So every program's excited, but it's different kind of excitement. And I know it's like that every year, but it's I think it's gonna be a fun year in Floyd County.
Final thoughts, Jeremy?
I'm ready to watch some football, and it's that time of year, and I've been itching and. Just to watch, and I've snuck here and there. I've kind of I got to take my little girl down the road every once in a while and drop her off for some stuff. And I got a little free minute. I'll swing by Peaburg and watch a little practice from the Hardee's parking lot. And
I stood out there. I have a picture on my phone that Tracy took of me. I was at the fence watching Prestonsburg and Pike Central scrimmage, and Ellie climbed the fence. She's like, I didn't realize she was that high up. And she's like, good job parenting there. And I was like, well, she wasn't falling. I thought she was closer to the ground than that. But I watched about 20 minutes of it the other night. And I'm like you, just looking forward to getting back in it. It'll be a good season. We hope you enjoyed our first edition of the Sound Off on Sports podcast. We'll be doing this weekly, or if something crazy comes up, we may do an extra one. Who knows? But it will be a weekly thing, a video podcast. Again, you can find us the video version on our YouTube channel, WMDJ on YouTube, and also posted to our WMDJ Facebook page. And then, of course, the podcast version, Spotify, Google, Android, and Apple platforms, and everywhere else you like to get your podcast. You can get that pretty readily. Or you can go to WMDJFM.com and click on the link there and either watch or listen at your convenience. Guys, looking forward to a good year. Till next week. We're out. This has been the Sound Off on Sports podcast, brought to you by the Mountain Arts Center and Howard Family Pharmacy. We'll have East Ridge and Floyd Central football for you this coming Friday. Watch our Facebook page and also on WMDJFM.com to listen to the action coming up on Friday night. We'll do Betsy Layne and Morgan County the week afterwards. That's our first 2 games of the season. We'll see you on the sidelines and back here on this podcast here next week. Have a great football week 0 opening week, guys.